oh my gosh, is right. So I wanted to have a little bit more time to discuss the Davante Adams thing, and we were getting a little bit late in Jerry's update. So just to go back to it before we get back to the baseball, get your Mets calls after 7 o'clock. So Davante Adams is someone that left Green Bay for a couple of reasons. One, he could get more money with the Raiders, and two, he's being reunited with Derek Carr. That's no longer the situation. He's no longer reunited with Derek Carr.
Oh.
He wants.
He's unhappy?
Right.
Okay.
Right. He's unhappy.
Okay.
So where does he go? Now, everybody's throwing out a couple of teams. Obviously, the Jets are at the top of the list that we have talked about for months. So how does that happen? Can it happen? And I think every one of the answers to these questions is yes. If the Jets want to make it work and Davante Adams wants to make it work, they will make it work, cap-wise and everything else, and compensation-wise.
Yeah, I don't see Davante Adams wanting to go to Buffalo, Pittsburgh.
Why not Buffalo?
Just because it's Buffalo, I think he wants to reunite. It's not. I know. I think he wants to reunite with Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been talking, they've been texting, they've been, whatever. They're friends. They're great friends. He went to the Raiders initially and left Aaron Rodgers to play with his best friend Derek Carr, who ended up leaving after the Raiders basically benched him. I knew this in the summertime. I knew all of this crap was going on behind the scenes. The other thing too is Davante was playing the game. He was never going to come out publicly and say anything. But now that he comes out publicly and says something, he takes the Raiders politically off the hook with their fans. Now, all of a sudden, he's unhappy and he wants to be traded. And then there was the whole business decision comments about, who was playing, who wasn't playing the week before, who's missing practice, who's missing preseason practices. And these wide receivers, and Davante is very smart. He wasn't going to go out there and complain publicly because that's going to be a bad image thing for him. And he was just going to percolate behind the scenes. And this was all going to come to a head before too long. And now, of course, the agents, Kenny Chapman and Frank Bauer, at one point in time said, this is unfounded, it's baseless, all of this crap doesn't mean anything. Oh, here we are now 6 weeks later. Now all of a sudden it is baseless and it is founded. And like I told you back in August, and I'll tell you again, this has to do with the contract structure that he has with the Raiders. The Raiders can get out from underneath the contract that will pay him $36.25 million next year and $36.25 million in year 2026. The Raiders, that's not happening for the Raiders.
Yeah, because they've got a roster that flat out stinks, and having an overpaid wide receiver on a team that can't get him the ball is useless.
Right. So, and the fact is, again, football teams will never admit this, but let's face it, the Raiders are in the market for a young quarterback. There's about 5 of them coming out in the 2025 draft. Mm-hmm. They're going to want a top 5 pick, and they're going to want to take either Shedeur Sanders, Milrose kid from Alabama, Carson Beck from Georgia, Quinn Ewers from Texas. They're going to do their due diligence on all these guys. And Tom Telesco, their new GM, who had been in San Diego all those years, is going to have to basically cut bait and probably get a second-round draft choice.
Yeah.
And, if I were the Jets, I would do it today, and I wouldn't be surprised if Davante's here next week.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, and that would be...
The Jets are leaving to go to London. He's not playing now. So.
Right, certainly not. And another part of this, too, and our buddy Vinny Accardi, who does some work for your foundation, actually was the guy who sent this to me on X. But Brian Baldinger, who is very, very good at breaking down stuff.
Yeah, love Brian.
Film.
Yep.
So he's showing in his latest Baldy breakdown from the Jets passing game a couple of instances where the wide receivers are not where they're supposed to be. And Aaron Rodgers is pissed off about it. And one of which is a really bad one on a third down where Garrett Wilson is he's supposed to stop. He's supposed to curl in. The ball is right there for him, and he just keeps running. And what it looks like Aaron Rodgers underthrew him and the ball's skipping on the turf when actually that ball should be in the hands of Garrett Wilson. He didn't run the route that Aaron was expecting him to run.
All right, so, awareness on the field.
Yeah.
And these guys have played now 4 games. Again, like I say all the time, you can practice all you want. You can go through all the meetings. You can go through all the walkthroughs. You can do all your special counts at the line of scrimmage.
You could spend all day at the driving range.
You cannot recreate what goes on in a game.
Yeah.
And it's hard to get on the same page when you haven't played a lot of football together under those circumstances, especially when it's bad weather and you're playing against a good defense from Denver, and it looks ugly. Everybody's frustrated. Everybody feels pissed off. And I will tell you this right now. Also knowing what I know about players and teammates and things of that nature, there's no hiding that Aaron Rodgers and, Davante Adams are friends and have been, in contact with each other. I guarantee it. What does that do to the Alan Lazards of the world, the Mike Williams of the world, the Garrett Wilsons of the world? How does that make them feel?
Yeah,
that's why I got to be really careful about these things.
And you know what? This is an interesting answer because on one end, it's I'm sorry, but we got to get better, and this guy's better, and he's worked with Aaron before, and you've had opportunities here, and if things were going great in the passing game, he didn't score 9 points against the Broncos, maybe we wouldn't be having this discussion. But there's the other side of it. You got to have a harmonious locker room to be able to win. That's a part of it, and today's athlete is one that is more sensitive than in years past. So it's a tough one. But if you can get Davante Adams, you get Davante Adams.
I will say this, and I don't want to speak for Garrett Wilson at all, but again, it's just my senses of being in locker rooms and being around people. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They bring in Davante Adams. That means less opportunities for Garrett Wilson.
Sure.
That doesn't open the field, but it is less opportunities. And Garrett Wilson's going to want a big contract because in his mind, he feels like he's a top 5 receiver.
Yeah,
I mean, that's still yet to be seen, but he thinks that he's a top 5 receiver. And quite frankly, he and Breece Hall do have an inflated view of themselves, especially after the way that they played this year.
Can't blame Zach Wilson anymore. It's Boomer and Gio on the Fan and CBS Sports Network.